Ekubirojs, yeah, which really stands for a very long title in Latvian, Ekusagablašanās un energotaupības birojs, which is we eventually shortened down to Ekubirojs. The background, actually, the true background is guilt. I was lucky enough once upon a time to build this, I'll try to switch to it right now, this site. Do you see my screen still? Jana?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you see the...
Now I can see the...
Yeah, so I designed and helped to build this this resort, and I would drive back to Sofia, Bulgaria, and I would look at all the legacy buildings, as some people nicely would call them, and think, how could I fix these? And I couldn't see any way to do it until 2012 when I was in Riga, and there was a company called Renesco, which was giving 20-year contracts out to buildings, saying to the owners, you'll pay the same thing, but you'll pay it to us. We'll save you 50%. We'll redo your common areas, including the external parts, and we will deliver a better building. And that pushed us into the idea of saying, how can we help them? How can we scale this up? Because clearly, financially, one company isn't enough. We need a lot more. So I saw our role as urgently scaling up decarbonization. And I also understood it wasn't just about the building energy efficiency, but it's financing. And since that's the area that I knew something about, I thought I was well placed for that. The other piece was that very early on, in 2012, ventilation wasn't included as an energy efficiency measure because it's not energy efficient. And so I realized that we needed to better explain to policymakers and homeowners what it really meant to do deep renovations. And that's where we came up with the idea of safety, health, and comfort, long term, at least 20 to 30 years. The first time I presented the idea to the parliament in Latvia, in the Saima, and we told deputies that we should have contracts that lasted 20 years. Some deputies left. And when we said that you could save up to 80% energy if you did a good job, more deputies left. Today, they agreed to 20 years. Latvia is one of the only countries where the development bank is offering 20-year loans based on a IRR of up to 30 years. In other words, payback is 30 years or less. The bank will lend you the money at a very favorable rate. So what do we do? Well, we are administrators. We act as an administrator for the Energy Performance Contracting Code. We work with partners such as Renovate Europe. Of course, as Jana mentioned, the EU Peers network is something that we are very involved in because we deeply believe that these networks, be they the National Energy Performance Contracting Code network, be it Renovate Europe, be it EU Peers, these are networks that are essential so that we can advocate. Energy efficiency doesn't have any lobby really to speak of. We are its lobby. And we can't weigh very heavily compared to the over 200 million that have been spent by the oil and gas lobbies in Brussels since 2010. To advocate, we also need to educate. And so we spend a lot of time educating both at a municipal level, at a parliamentary level, also at a European level. Finally, we also work to deliver all that. We work as a researcher to provide the knowledge, to produce the knowledge necessary. And we take all this and we also work as a mediator and protector. We have helped mediate disputes between maintenance companies and the owners where there was a misunderstanding or simply an incorrect, let's say, decision. And it always helps an owner when they have on their side an outsider who says, well, no, that's not really correct. And here are the things that the owner can do. It accelerates the solution. And these services are really therefore focused around users to try to understand owners. For instance, very early on, I kept thinking, why won't owners want to renovate their buildings? They must be idiots. And so I thought, well, let's do a study. And by the time we finished the study, this was in 2014, um, the conclusion, which I was going to drive towards, owners are being stupid not to do renovations. The conclusion was owners are smart not to want to do renovations because in most cases it doesn't work, and that's why we need to have a different approach to renovation, which then led us to imagine how could we do what I call deep energy efficient deep renovations, and I spelled deep D capital E P, meaning deep energy efficiency principle first renovations, because it's too easy to say we've done a renovation when we're using renewable energy as a compensation to a weak energy efficiency project. So how can we build that? And that's where we have a number of tools, be they practical advice or be they our sunshine platform. And of course, most important is to keep following. So for instance, we did that study in 2014. Just 2 months ago, we did a small study where we went to visit owners of buildings that had been renovated over 10 years ago. And we talked to the owners as to what has been happening and how is it going. And there's some good, mostly good, in the buildings that we've discussed, that we've worked with, and not so good in some of the buildings that were done according to the standard that was agreed to with the EU. And that comes from understanding the user journey and spending time with users. So for instance, we went around 5 cities last year with a tent, and we put the tent up in where there was a lot of public movement, mostly in the daytime. And we talked to people, we explained what we were doing, we listened to what they were saying. And that kind of work ends up with this kind of a map where we really can break down to the lowest necessary granularity what actually is happening in making decisions and what's happening in using buildings, so that we can better understand our stakeholders, be they the residents themselves, but of course also the companies that work with them, since the goal is really to try to imagine how can we scale up deep building renovation. So we imagine new journeys. How can they be done better? And here's an example of a renovation journey, which was actually put into place, and it shows how quickly you can go from actual decision to delivery of a building. So you see 3 to 4 weeks to the energy audit, all the way to construction of work in 48 weeks. The reality is that in the disorganized, the not thought out process, there are buildings that have spent 2 to 3 years preparing for a construction work that never happened because maybe they ran out of time, or there was simply owner fatigue and they refused to sign off. The other way that we work is digitalization. We're working with EU Peers on the Knowledge Hub, which maybe all of you know about, but I really would ask you all to look at. And that is something that's a cooperative process. We are a community, which means that the digitalization is something that we can all participate in. But we also have the Sunshine platform, of which we can talk about, but it basically takes a building from its basic data all the way to monitoring it throughout the entire period of an energy performance contract plus. And so it's built on the concept of trust, efficiency, and standardization, because we think that's the only way that we can scale up. What have been our successes? Well, we've been based on those buildings by our friends at Renesco. We've managed to do a number of other buildings. We've created a methodology that can be replicated, was replicated in Poland. We've helped and watched some one-stop shops be set up in several countries. And of course, we've worked in a lot of Horizon 2020 projects, for which I'm extremely grateful. This is something I didn't even know existed 12, 13 years ago. And I find it an extraordinary source of knowledge. And finally, what is our conversion rate, which is what people really want to know. It's 9%. That actually convert through us. We believe it's more of the buildings that we've met with, but those we don't have their answers. Thank you.